let's move on to the next part of our discussion, and that is Eliza's education. And let's have group 2 and 6 respond to the questions here. What has she achieved in the first part of Act 3, and where does she fall short? Okay, yeah, group 2 and 6.
We will talk about what has she achieved in the first part of Act 3. We think Eliza achieves good pronunciation and appearance. We find some examples on the page 62. At the 18th lines, she can speak "How do you do?" with good pronunciation, and the 13th line in Eliza speak with pedantic correctness of pronunciation and great beauty of tone. And the 10th line, Eliza, who is exquisitely dressed and produces an impression of such remarkable distinction and beauty as she enters lightly all rise, quite fluttered, and Clara almost devours her with her eyes in the final lines. And besides, Freddie bows and sits down in the Elizabethan chair, infatuated. By these examples, we know that Eliza dresses more beautifully than before. These examples tell us that she has achieved good pronunciation and appearance.
And I'm going to talk about where does she fall short. From page 63 and 64, we can know how she fell short. Higgins told his mother that Eliza is keep to only 2 subjects, the weather and everybody's health. He didn't want Eliza to go on things in general, because he thought that it would be safer for her. Therefore, after Eliza finished speaking "How do you do?" to everyone, Mrs. Higgins asked Eliza about the weather and if there will be a rain. Then Eliza said, "The shallow depression in the west of the islands is likely to move slowly in an easterly direction. There are no indications of any great change in the barometrical situation." After hearing her states, Freddie laughed at her and said that she's awfully funny. I mean, if anyone asks us if it will rain, we might just say that there are not too much clouds in the sky, so it won't rain, etc. Eliza's words might appear a little too formal, so it sounds very strange. Afterwards, Mrs. Ainsford Hill said, "I'm short. I hope it won't turn cold. There's so much influenza about. It runs right through our whole family regularly every spring." Then Eliza said her family told her that her aunt died of influenza, and she doubted. Her belief was that they dumped the old woman in, which means they killed her. They killed her aunt by putting gin into her throat, and she even said that gin was just like mother's milk to her. We think that it's quite weird to tell people we first met about these things. It's very appropriate.
Let's take a look at what Eliza said on page 63. Indeed, I think that it's interesting that Eliza talks about the weather as if she were a weather report person. It is very professional, but not really part of the small talk. And then with the mentioning of the weather, and then Mrs. Ansel Hill said that it would turn cold, and then there is a lot of influenza around, and that's why Eliza mentions how her aunt died of influenza. But she said that she doesn't believe so, and she said that she is very strong. Her aunt is a very strong woman. The last two lines: why should she die of influenza? She come through diphtheria right enough the year before. I saw her with my own eyes. Fairly bruised with it she was. They all thought she was dead, but my father kept ladling gin down her throat till she came to, so sudden that she bit the bowl of the spoon. So in other words, this aunt is very strong. So and then at one point, when she has diphtheria, which is 白喉, she is rejuvenated, or she recovers with the help of some gin. So that's why she suspects that other people kill her, but not really killing her with liquor. Liquor is just something quite ordinary for them. You know, like her aunt, her father are used to drinking alcohol, and the father is even an alcoholic, a chronic alcoholic. So the group did pretty much correctly, but there was just one minor detail here that they didn't get. The other thing which is interesting is Eliza's way of thinking, and that is I think she herself wants the aunt's hat, straw hat, very much, and that's why she said that the other people who killed her got a straw hat. So I think this is all her conjecture, you know, with in her own mindset, you know, like she believes that alcohol is nothing to them, and she believes that straw hat is everything to everybody, just as it is very important for her. Okay, so it's all, you know, her own logic. We are not sure if some people do kill the aunt, but then what is interesting here is also the fact that she uses the slangs, which are not really taught by Higgins. The slangs just slip out, like this one, or not bloody likely. You know, so these are the slangs which are not appropriate in this polite society, and that's where she falls short, because the moment she speaks, then her own ideas come out. You know, her language come out, the use of the slangs. And the other very interesting idea is how she talks about alcoholism, or alcohol being an ordinary thing in her circle, to such a degree that she even thinks that the drink or the alcohol does the people good, because it will keep the husband from nagging or from bothering the wives. This is on page 64, the last speech by Eliza. You know, all of her talk is very colorful, very interesting, and maybe also very truthful about her way of thinking or her ways of life. And it's just that for the upper class, they want to remain polite and appropriate. So these topics are not really mentionable. They are a bit like taboo for them. Let's move on and have the other group present their views on the Comedy of Manners. Yeah, Act 1 and 5.
Well, when we watch a comedy, we will laugh at their characters, ridiculous actions, and dialogues. And sometimes we think it is a little bit ironic. And after we read Act 2 and 3, we found out some plot about comical elements. And the first one is contradictory setting on page 25. On the piano is a dessert dish heaped with fruit and sweets, mostly chocolate. At the beginning, at Act 2, we can see there are many chocolates in Higgins' house, And here we can know that Higgins is a serious and cautious person. But on the piano, there are also many chocolates and desserts. Here we also can see that Higgins is not only serious but childish to some degree. So we think the contradiction is not only about the setting, but also his childish personality.
Also, we can see his lack of manners and sarcastic. Also, we can see Higgins' childlike and impolite behaviors on page 27, 28, and page 47. At the bottom of page 27, when he finds out that Eliza with unconcealed disappointment, he makes an intolerable grievance on it. He thinks she is no use and also tells her he doesn't want her. And on page 28, Higgins also compares Eliza to a bigot. As we can see, he makes sarcastic remarks to others. It shows his rudeness. And on page 47, Dolittle compares Eliza to a blooming monkey. Both Higgins and Dolittle use an interesting but ironic way to describe Eliza. And in addition, we also find a funny plot on page 30. Eliza wails because Higgins says he'll hit her with a broomstick. And that's all we found in Act 2.
And now I'm going to talk about the comical elements from Act 3. The first dialogue we found is on page 63, the dialogue between Mrs. Higgins, Eliza, and Mrs. Ainsford Hill. It's Mrs. Higgins starts the topic about the weather, and Eliza talks the shallow depression in the west of this island is likely to move slowly in an easterly direction, and so on. It seems like very awkward because this occasion is pretty casual, but you talk like you're very professional. So from the view of a bystander, we might think that why you act pretty funny and a girl like you doesn't understand the proper manners. So we think this is very interesting and also a little bit ironic.
And we also think that at page 69, that Higgins and Pickering that persuade Mrs. Higgins how interesting Eliza is also funny. And it's like they're talking together at the same time and just telling, oh, Eliza is good and she's blah, 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 and she's smart, and they just talk, and maybe Mrs. Higgins, she just don't understand what they're talking. She thinks it's annoying, and at the end, Mrs. Higgins say, "Oh, enough! I don't want to listen to it anymore." And I think that Mrs. Higgins, she's supposed to be a lady, and she's annoying by Higgins and Pickering, two gentlemen. And I think it's funny that Pickering and Higgins do such childish things. And thank you. That's all.
Okay. So we have talked about Eliza's education, especially in the first part of Act 3, and then Group 1 and 5 have talked about the comic elements in terms of exaggeration. Exaggeration in their rude manners or their contradictions, and the overexcitement of the two gentlemen in the way they speak together, or towards the end they even shout together. You know, they get too carried away. Okay, so I think for me the other fun part, or maybe even also comical part, is the use of language and rhetoric in Act 2 and 3. So maybe Groups 3 and 4, right, can discuss this, the rhetorical skills used by Mr. Dolittle, and choose two ideas of Mr. Dolittle's and one of Mr. Higgins to discuss whether you agree or disagree with them. Okay, so group 3 and 4.
For question number 1, what are the rhetorical skills used by Mr. Doolittle? Here we include some traits he shows when he speaks, and each have examples of quoted from his words. First, he tries to sound as polite as possible so that he can flatter Mr. Higgins. Like, I've taken a sort of fancy to you, Governor. And he called Mr. Higgins and Mr. Pickering Governor and gentlemen. Second, but he also talks in a high-sounding tone. For example, listen here, Governor, you and me is men of the world, and I've heard all the preachers and all the prime ministers, for I'm a thinking man and game for politics or religion or social reforms, same as all the other amusements. And in the last paragraph of page 48, you can take a look at the last paragraph of page 48. It's the most obvious part. The whole paragraph is like giving a lengthy speech or something, but actually he's not including anything meaningful. And he keeps claiming the right as Eliza's father. For example, what was my feelings and my duty as a father? What was I to think from that, Governor? I ask you as a parent, what was I to think? And he tries to appear miserable. For example, is this reasonable? Is it fair to take advantage of a man like this? And he's also being straightforward. For example, as a daughter, she's not worth her keep. And I am pretending to be deserving. I'm undeserving, and I mean to go on being undeserving. I like it, and that's the truth. For question number 2, why are his statements funny? Mr. Doolittle is actually a man doesn't have higher education, but in the process of negotiating with Mr. Higgins, he tries to sound convincible and as well as literally. But we can find he's actually ignorant, for things he mentioned are not really reasonable, and whatever the excuse he finds, they are only for the purpose of taking advantage of Eliza to blackmail money. And he's also contradictory. In the beginning, he claimed he came to Mr. Higgins to take Eliza away, but when he found this doesn't work, he said he hasn't mentioned such a thing. Then from have I said a word about money to admitting his needs. He even said that Mr. Higgins couldn't spend money better except giving it to him. He always thinks he values his intentions well, but from the other side, they are just apparent. He tries to be clever, but turns out the contrary. That's the reason he blows things, and also what makes him look funny.
And the third discussion, choose 2 of Doolittle's idea and 1 of Higgins, and discuss how you agree or disagree with them. The first we discussed about is Doolittle. He wanted to sell his daughter out with £5, and we disagreed with it. As we can see here, his selfishness by his kind of behavior. At the meanwhile, we can tell from that Eliza was a little bit estranged with her father, Mr. Doolittle, and he also ignored the morality which people imposed on him, so that he can sell his daughter without any compassion or pity. The second one is Doolittle only wanted £5 instead of 10, and he's not so greedy, and we agreed with it. because he thought that this amount of money is enough for him. We all know that greed is nearly a human nature, but to our surprise, he didn't want more. In his opinion, more money means a sort of extra trouble. Though it might not be his original thinking about requiring money, we all put praise on him for his integrity. And the last one is Higgins. It's a bit like he always looked down upon other people who are in lower classes, and Higgins, sorry, and we disagree with it. As we are told in this modern society, every job is noble and every job is vital. Higgins is a scholar with quantity of expertise and knowledge. Therefore, he should not tease others by their statues. We are taught to disagree this kind of behavior of mocking someone for being proud or bigoted as an upper class person is out of date, undoubtedly.